I've been saying on my blog this morning that I find it more difficult at this moment in time. I maybe said this yesterday because, in general, in Fitzroy, if some of you get something out of a service every now and again, well, that's fine. And as long as I don't speak heresy and I say something helpful, that's okay. But when you're speaking into coronavirus, that's a whole other issue because it seems to me that there has to be more weight to what I say. People are looking for something from the Bible that will sustain them and give them some strength through this period of time. And I'm always keen to lift our morale because I think it's a time of opportunity and a time when we can still do things, even though we seem curtailed, that we can still do things. So I'm finding it, if you're the praying kind, that's the thing I need to be prayed for most. That I find these little nuggets and these words. And today I'm reading from the Message. So this is Eugene Peterson at his most flowery and his most poetic. And if you'll bear with it, I think he says something. Even though I think Eugene here, as much as a translation, I think he's actually trying to teach us something. And his paraphrase is a little bit of that. He's not only translating the text, but he's exegeting the text. He's trying to say what he thinks the text means. So he says at the end of Matthew chapter 11, and if you know the Message at all, these were the first words that really grabbed me in the Message, and you might well already know them. Are you tired? Worn out? Burnt out on religion? I could say burnt out with isolation. Come to me. Get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live life freely and lightly, even in a time of coronavirus. Unforced rhythms of grace Jesus is inviting us into. And how much at this moment in time are we learning new rhythms? But wouldn't it be wonderful to learn unforced rhythms of grace? And when I hear that phrase, it's not just poetic for me, it's something that I desire deep down in my very soul, because we usually live in a world that is far from unforced. Everything about it is forced. We're forced in the workplace, we're forced with schedules and diaries, we're forced with materialism, we're forced with social media, we're forced. The whole world seems to be pulling and pushing us into all kinds of pressures. So Jesus' invitation to find these unforced rhythms of grace is incredible. And it's something I really deeply desire, not only in coronavirus times, but I longed for it before and didn't do very well at it. And I'm hoping actually that coronavirus times might somehow help us to get there later down the road. But when Jesus says these words to me, and he says, come to me and walk with me, and then you'll learn it, I'm asking, where do we find this unforced, where's the secret to these unforced rhythms of grace? And it seems to me that the walking with Jesus is the key, because he was talking to disciples who didn't, as I always say, rush from Bethlehem onto the cross at Calvary. They walked with him for these 3 years of his ministry. They walked with him down these dusty roads. They walked with him through the day. And as they walked with him, they were learning how to live differently, an alternative way to cope with the world around them and around us. And I can't help going back to think that maybe 5 chapters earlier, Matthew records the secret of the unforced rhythms of grace. It's that part where Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount, he's talking about the lilies of the field and he's talking about the birds of the air, and he's saying they don't care, they don't toil, they don't spin, they don't worry about it, and yet look how beautiful they are. And we've spent most of our lives toiling and spinning. And here we are in coronavirus times, and some of us are not toiling and spinning as much as we were, and life doesn't seem to be as forced as it was. Could those be the times to learn to trust? Because that's what Jesus is talking about in Matthew chapter 6. And at the end of Matthew chapter 6, when he gets to the end of that story about the flowers of the field and the birds of the air, Jesus says this: what I'm trying to do here is to get you to relax, to not be so preoccupied with getting, so you can respond to God's giving. Now, we're not getting at the minute because we're not out there getting. We're not in that materialist rush. So maybe in our isolation, maybe in this lockdown, we might learn how to respond to God's giving, because I believe God is giving to us in this time. And Jesus goes on, Eugene Peterson paraphrase, people who don't know God and the way he works fuss over these things. But you know both God and how he works. Steep your life in God reality, God initiative, God provisions. Don't worry about missing out. You'll find all your everyday concerns will be met. And as I read that, I wonder whether before coronavirus we were all living on the edge of things. The national health was on the edge. The economy was on the edge. My life was on the edge. I went out into, we have a kind of a garage turned study that has become a bit of it's almost a storeroom. And I went out the other night and I thought I'll start to clear this. But I lived so much on the edge that now I want to clear it. Nobody's picking up the rubbish and I can't take it to a dump. And therefore I'm left, because I left it on the edge, I missed out. Some missed out because they were on the edge of getting social media and they never got social media, and now they're lost in a world where they can't connect the way those of us in social media can. We all were living on the edge. I think the economy is the one of those that it's falling off the edge, and we're losing all these businesses that might not come back, and everybody's worried about the economy. But maybe Jesus is saying, that world before, the forced rhythms that you were living in, maybe we need to learn the unforced rhythms of grace. Now, I don't want anybody to be unemployed. I don't want businesses to go out of work and all of that. And I'm trying to support the local businesses the way that I can. I've got a new blog about artists who are no longer able to gig. Brian Houston talked about what he's doing in coronavirus on my blog yesterday. Ben Glover's going to be the one that we're looking at, and he's I've interviewed him for tomorrow. And we've also been talking about Alexander's Bread that you can get delivered. And I'm all into keeping businesses alive and all kinds of people alive who are struggling. Why not pay your window cleaner, even if he can't clean your windows, just to keep them in business? I'm not against that. But what I'm saying is about the big economy, that we're on so much on the edge of the margins of profit, that when something like this comes out of nowhere, then we can't live in it because we can't retain it and we might lose it. And maybe we need to learn. Maybe we need to learn that we don't need the demand of more, and we become content with less. Unforced rhythms of grace. Flowers, the birds. Maybe we need to listen to Jesus in this time, to walk with him, and to find that he'll give us a real rest. And maybe that's part of this. Stop the world, I want to get off. Many of us used to say many times. Randy Stonehill had a song about it. Maybe we've had a gift to stop the world and get off. And maybe we need to take that chance. And during that chance, we need to learn God's unforced rhythms of grace. May that be so.